From the southernmost point of Dorne to the lands of always winter and what is west of Westeros and the shadows in the east, even if those shadows are coming to us from Mordor. This is Casterly Talk. I'm Ken Napzok, happy to be joined by Alden Diaz. Alden, hello. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing better now after those Mordor R's. That's why I'm here, really, is just to say fun things.
Yes,
fun made-up things. I'm well, and I'm excited. And again, I say this every week. It's never felt more real than it does now. And now we're even closer, so it feels more real.
Look, if you're like me, and I know, Alden, you weren't, a lonely kid who was a nerd of the 80s, you've got Andor, Rings of Power, Bad Batch on the way, a light and magic documentary to watch this weekend, and House of the Dragon. Oh my gosh, I feel like that little kid who was bullied in 1983 is finally getting his due, not counting the last decade, of course.
You won. In the end, it came back around. It was the long con, but you won.
There you go. People in chat, we are live. If you're listening to the podcast later, thank you. We're still mostly a podcast. We're building up the YouTube channel, but we are live here on YouTube. And I love seeing comments from one of our faithful listeners, Ranger Donald. Trey T is here. Bill Bro Baggins is rolling those R's as well, saying Mordor with me. Lord Romo's here. We got Haunted Autumn here as well. Yes, and no super chats. Autumn's asking that question. Fair question. We appreciate people who want to super chat. We are just launching this YouTube channel side of Casterly Talk. Casterly Talk has been a podcast since about 2018 when it was called Daily Thrones. We have transitioned to this. So if you want to support the show, do have a QR code up if you're watching on your laptop, and you can snap that. That is a donation spot for the show. But for the most part, we're just hanging out live with you all here today. We're going to ask questions. We got answers. We got special guests here in a second. Also, I want to let you all know, I'm sometimes an old dog who takes time to adjust. I told myself, I'm not going to do a Twitter page just for this. I don't even have a TikTok page yet for Casterly Talk. Alden's trying to pressure me into that, and he'll probably win. But we do officially have a Twitter page. It is simply at Casterly Talk. If you want to tweet us there, follow, use the hashtag Casterly Talk, all that stuff. You can go there as well. But enough about me. Enough about you, Alden. You haven't even had a chance to talk yet. We've got some special guests. Let's get right to them tonight. Alden, who do we have here tonight?
Well, I thought to myself, who's good at explaining? And I figure if you can explain one thing, you could probably explain a bunch more things. So we decided to bring on both members of Star Wars Explained, Molly and Alex. Damon, Molly, also, of course, from the A Certain Point of View podcast. And we brought them in. Look how zen he is. He's so ready.
I'm ready to explain literally everything to you.
but about other things, not about this.
Alex looks like he's about ready to answer a trivia.
This is Andor, right? We're talking Andor?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. We all got the screeners. They say,
oh, man, I wish.
Yeah, I know, right?
I do want to say, don't make me roll my R's. I can't do it. I was so jealous. Yeah, Molly knows I can't do it. I have the worst Tarkin impression. It really bums me out. So stop showing off.
Man, see, this is, I think our goal at the end of the show is to get Alex to try to roll those R's just once there. Yeah. I learned from 2 years of high school Spanish to at least try to get close on the R's. I don't get too close, but I get close enough, I think. So happy to have both of you here. Yes, no secret. We love talking Star Wars with both of you, whether it be on Force Center, Star Wars Explains YouTube channel. Joseph and I love popping over there. Of course, Octo Radio with Alden and his Star Wars podcast world. But I know you all have other interests, believe it or not. And this kind of emerged over the last couple of days with some text. I was teasing Molly about her apprehension for House of the Dragon. We'll get to that in a second. But Molly, you're really excited about Rings of Power, yeah?
Yeah, I am deeply intrigued by just the whole world of Lord of the Rings and Tolkien. Haven't read the books. I struggle to keep up with all the names and all the places and the things, but it's just one of those things that like it feels good to like settle into the world of Lord of the Rings because it's so massive, so it's very much like Star Wars in that way. So I think that's why I'm so drawn to it.
Yeah, look, I'm with you too. I own a copy of the books. I've thumbed through it. And I know that's sacrilegious in some parts, but my interests were always in other areas. Star Wars, of course, but then movies, Jackson's movies come out, and yes, I know Tom Bombadil, nowhere to be found. I get it. My old boss used to yell at me, "You can't like those movies. They ruined them. They ruined the books." I got it, but those movies move me beyond belief. Molly, I got to imagine you're in that category where you're inspired. You're pulled in, like you said. It's this wonderful world to play around in.
Yeah, and I can't believe we're getting to explore a whole other age of this world right now, that of which I don't know much about, but I'm excited to learn.
Alden, do you think we have someone else here who claims to know every minutia of knowledge in the Second Age?
Well, I think we're the three of us, Alex aside, are doing a great job of lowering that bar right now. So I feel like even if he doesn't know everything, he's still gonna look like he does, which is the key. Because Molly said, I don't really, I have trouble with the people, the places, and like some of the things which are nouns. What you're saying is that you have trouble with the nouns.
Well,
But no, I joke. But yeah, Alex, carry us, please.
Oh, I'm not going to do a good job of that. I promise. I love Middle Earth. After Star Wars, I think Lord of the Rings was my other obsession. Like it pushed Star Wars to the side for a little while for me while I was growing up. And it was, the prequels were coming out, and it was competitive. I feel like it was a good time, but I think I leaned more towards Lord of the Rings in those days because it was something new to me. And I really fell into the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit books. I am rereading the Silmarillion right now. And
good luck.
God, Molly is right. Like Molly asked me to read it to her.
I was like,
read
me it just like a little bit out loud of what you're reading right now. And I was like, is that the Bible? What is
it
there's
unironically
so
reads that way. It just does.
I think Tolkien wanted it to be. Yeah.
That's exactly what he wanted. He wanted to write his Middle Earth Bible. Because the man can write a normal story. The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, like those are stories. The Silmarillion is a history book. It's a Bible, and it's so much of that. It's just a bunch of names of like, this guy is named this in English, this in Elvish. This is what the Valar called him, and this like I can't keep this all straight. It's so
like
hard.
Gandalf. It's like, is he Mithrandir? Is he Gandalf? Is he Stormcrow? Is he Lauren? Or once I started to find that stuff out, because I think that I was a little bit younger than you were, but the whole idea of the Lord of the Rings seemed older when the Star Wars prequels were coming out. It was like, my mom's friends know about like Return of the King, so it just felt like you sort of wanted to rise up to it.
I agree with Haunted Autumn here in the chat there. Whatever the Jackson LOTR films did or did not do for Lord, they were one of the few modern examples of true cinema magic. Absolutely. One of the reasons I was pulled in from this world at a time when I was, into Star Wars to a point where I've said on Force Center a lot, I can sometimes get defensive about other things. Like I still haven't seen the Matrix series at all because I was like, people were comparing it to Star Wars and I was not going to have it. So when Lord of the Rings came about, I had that attitude too. And that's not a good attitude to have, by the way. So I was pulled in. Alex, did you ever feel, because I'm with you at one point for like 1 year, Robotech was more popular in my heart than Star Wars. Did you feel that you were cheating on Star Wars or cheating on Lord of the Rings before you became a professional Star Wars explainer? Did you feel look across the room and be like, I miss you, LOTR, or I miss you, Star Wars?
I don't think I felt like I was cheating on Star Wars back in 2001 when they were coming out. Like I was just kind of the same thing. My dad introduced me to Star Wars, and then these movies were coming out, and he introduced me to Lord of the Rings, and he gave me his like second edition original books, and I read them every year before every new movie came out, and I just loved them so much. So I wasn't even thinking about Star Wars except for when the new movies came out. So I guess Attack of the Clones was the only one that came out in the middle of a Star Wars or a Lord of the Rings coming out. And then when Revenge of the Sith was back around, like I was back into Star Wars. So there was just those 3 years where I was all about Lord of the Rings. And I don't want to, Bilbo Baggins, no shade to the Silmarillion. I'm just saying it's hard to read.
It's I stand in awe of the Silmarillion. It impresses me more than I think I get it. And it's funny because it's to diehard Tolkien fans. I'm sure they feel the same way about like Wikipedia. Like you try to explain what the Mandalorian Wars were. I'm sure they feel the same way. But it's like when you start to really unpack that stuff, it's like, how many times did he go to Dol Guldur? I thought it was one time, but now he's back there. He seems to go to the same places a lot. Like it's just very, very detailed. And I will just say the healthiest way to approach this problem that you're describing, Ken, is to be in an open polyamorous thing with Star Wars. Sometimes Star Wars and I, we explore. Sometimes Star Wars does things that even are not for me, but we come back to each other. And that's what's healthy.
You set healthy boundaries in your relationship and you can go a lot of different spots. That's what we're saying here. You don't have to choose just one here. We are going to get into a little bit of the Comic-Con wrap up, talk about that full Rings of Power trailer. I want to get to that. But before we do that, before we jump into the Comic-Con stuff, and Alden and I will take us in that conversation direction there, I do want to ask you, Alex and Molly, and I guess particularly Alex here, being a big Tolkien nut that you are, like a lot of people watching, this series, I today, more than anything, was not studying up on characters, names, and themes, what we love to discuss here at Casterly Talk. I was studying up on the legal battle to just get this show made and the rights, because I've been kind of confused and not paying attention to it. Do you have any trepidation about what's coming down the line, Alex or Molly, based on, hey, we kind of got the rights here, we can touch upon things, a lot of it is open space to play with here in the Second Age? What's your thoughts on that heading into the show?
Yeah, I didn't realize that all this stuff until today. I was reading more about it, and the fact that they only got rights to like certain parts of the history, certain parts of the Silmarillion, bits and pieces. So I don't know how that's going to go. I trust that there's enough smart people involved in this and enough money going into it that it'll be great. But yeah, that's really interesting because I didn't know that until today.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, good.
I do remember it now, but I'm curious because looking in those trailers, I'm like, well, they're definitely showing some stuff that's in the Silmarillion.
It's like really, it's in that nebulous sort of. It fascinates me too. Like Ken, I share that interest of like the behind the scenes stuff is not the story; it's its own story, and it's exciting in its own way. So, like I did the breakdown recently of how the Henson rights work. That Kermit cannot be on Sesame Street because those are two different rights packages. And then all the Henson originals like Dark Crystal are a different rights package. And then Marvel did the twins trade where it's like you get Wanda and we get Quicksilver, but you can have a Quicksilver, but he has to die by the end of the movie. Like all of these weird things. I mean, that's why Kelvin Trek exists. So that excites me of like, how can you out lawyer these people creatively? It's a fun challenge.
It sounds like what you're describing is me trading baseball cards in the 80s. Like I'll give you a Vince Coleman and a George Brett for an Eric Davis. That's exactly what my elementary school
sounds
days.
Like a bad trade, Ken.
I know who those people are.
And I only bring it up. It's fascinating. It's different. For Star Wars fans, I don't know. I guess it's like, hey, we're going to do a Knights of the Old Republic series. You just can't mention Jedi. You can mention Sith, but and that's kind of a general, simple way to look at it. It's fascinating. But the thing I say before we go into some details here, Alden's got some great themes picked out. We're going to talk about that stuff in the trailer. I just hope people can watch the show with a total open heart. This is something that Alex and Molly, we deal in the Star Wars world a lot, where yes, we love our canon, we love our Star Wars explained videos, but we also love what everything is about and the whys behind it. And I just hope that doesn't hinder people enjoying what they've cooked up for this what looks to be a 5-year run of what we hope is an amazing show. Alex, do you share those same trepidations working in Star Wars canon as you do?
Yeah, I already know. I mean, I've seen some discussions, and I'm not even like heavily involved in the Lord of the Rings fandom. But I've seen some people talking about how characters aren't really where they should be in the timeline, and it sounds like they're taking we're not going to know for sure until the show comes out, but it sounds like they're taking hundreds or thousands of years of history and kind of mushing it all together just to tell a cohesive story,
condensing
and so
down.
And to me, like, I wouldn't have known, even if I read the Silmarillion again, I don't think I would have noticed. Diehard Middle Earth fans are going to notice, and they might be mad about it. But I think 90% of the people who watch this show are just going to be in for the ride. And I'm excited to just get this told as a story and not as a history book.
Yeah.
I understand the idea of condensing some of that stuff in, especially to draw in people that know vaguely about Lord of the Rings, for them to condense some of this earlier stuff and find a way to connect it to what people know from Peter Jackson's movies.
Right.
That's going to bring in a big part of the audience.
Which are not paragons of adaptation. They get remembered as being perfect, and I think that they are 3 perfect films. But I remember, some of I think my uncles, some other people I knew, like in the geek space, would say things like, "Oh, Frodo and Sam never went to Osgiliath in the books," before I had read them. And it's like, but Osgiliath has the Sam and Frodo like heart to heart. That is the key of their 2-man journey, their arc, their romance. And to not have that shocks me. And that was a change that people would blast Peter for today. So I think that perspective is like really important. The Bombadil stuff, if that was now, not having him, it would have been death to Peter. 100%.
It was then too. I remember those talks.
Oh yeah. No, look. My friends say all the time, the elves don't show up at the battle in Two Towers, and I go, well, they should have.
Yeah,
great.
You're telling me when they show up and you get that moment of them all going to attention, it's not the coolest thing you've ever seen.
Come on, Haldir. Give me more Haldir.
Yeah, to honor that agreement. Oh God, nerd chills. But hey, let's get to what we got to watch at Comic-Con. Well, you guys you all 3 didn't attend Comic-Con. I was in San Diego. I didn't watch much. I had more white wine than I planned and a lot of other drinks and fun doing comedy down there with Mark Ellis. So I didn't even see the full trailer until a couple days later after I woke up. You guys got to watch it. We all got to watch it. I've seen it now. Alden, let's start this conversation here. Your reaction to the big picture stuff here in the trailer, what it did for you. Then we'll go to Alex and Molly here.
Well, the second it dropped and it was this full trailer, I thought to myself, that's why it was called main teaser last week. Because I thought that was so weird, thinking, this is a full trailer, but still calling it a teaser, whatever. And then they added another minute. So that was exciting to get 3 minutes. It had a lot of new. I think it's really sweeping. I think that Morfydd Clark as Galadriel is just a vision. I love her. And that's big shoes to fill. Thrilling trailer, gorgeous, and really excited.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think it did what it needed to do. This might have been the best looking one yet. And look, I think the designs have been good so far. You got John Howe involved, a lot of people, from Weta itself working on it. So it's going to look like it. I think it always has. But this trailer had the biggest feel yet. Molly, your thoughts overall on this trailer, and did it get you geeked up for some Rings of Power?
It absolutely did. I mean, a lot of the stuff I liked about it's the same, like just how everything looks. It just looks so awesome. The cinematography looks great. It just looks real to me. It doesn't look like, I don't know. We talk sometimes about how you can really see the volume in Star Wars. Yeah. You don't get that with these.
Still going to bring up Star Wars in there.
You don't get that with these like big sweeping shots of this like crazy looking world. And getting to see Galadriel when she was like a true warrior is just chef's kiss for me. Like it just looks amazing. Yeah,
as Ranger Donald said here in the chat, the money shows. I totally agree with that there. Yeah, Bezos is a big fan of this world, and we can look, he's a character. He's a villain sometimes in a lot of stories. He's taken his space cock rocket up to the clouds. I get it, but he wants this to be out here, wants it to be big, and 1 billion or so over 5 seasons. I had a little early on when some of the shots are coming out. I was like, okay. I hope this looks bigger. And this, I keep using that word bigger because that's all that was in my mind once I sobered up and watched it. Alex, when you saw the trailer, did you want to break it down and put it into a canon timeline?
I wish I could have. Like it took me back to the Fellowship of the Ring trailer and just being like, okay, I kind of know that. What's that though? And what's that? Or like, that looks familiar. I think I read about that once. And it's what made me want to start reading the Silmarillion again to feel prepared for it. Not even that so much as just like, I'm excited. Yeah. And I feel like I'm just spinning my wheels here. So I'm like, let's just read the book again. We'll probably try to watch Lord of the Rings again, just because I'm so ready to get back into Middle Earth. And also, obviously, the Balrog was huge at the very end, but the fact that it was matching the Peter Jackson design, that hyped me up a lot. Just that it's going to feel cohesive, even if it isn't really legally.
Like getting to see a lot of little things pop up in the final trailer that I recognize, like a Balrog and the Palantir globe thingy and Moria, like Moria at its height, like when it was the best of the best, you know.
It was even like a similar grip too that she had to do on the Palantir to like Christopher Lee. I was like, ooh, Palantir hand motions.
You gotta just kind of be kind of creepy.
You can't casually. You cannot casually look into the Palantir.
Yeah.
Or if you're Aragorn, you have to pull out your entire sword and shove it at the Palantir. I mean, I think, touching off that Balrog point, the last thing I sent to Ken today was the Balrog. That's it. Just the Balrog. And I attached the video of the grandma going, oh, here comes the Balrog.
Yeah.
Old man me not spend a lot of time on TikTok. First time I seen it, I giggled.
I knew that if I just said "Here comes the Balrog," I would need to explain it anyway, so I just did it in advance. You got to know who you're working with. But I've seen already speculation, like, oh, did they cut a deal to get some of the designs? And it's like, I don't know, but to feel like this is not a prequel to Fellowship, but it can be spiritually, like, you're going to watch Cate Blanchett now and think about the things you saw her do here, even if they're not in the same canon. It's like you guys say on Force Center, emotional canon, and that can come from a design. Like, maybe somebody could really break down how the Balrog doesn't look identical, and that's cool, but I like it living in the same language. I mean, there's going to come to a point in this show, who knows what season it'll be out of the 5, where we're going to see the One Ring, and it's not going to be exactly the One Ring that has existed for all of our lives on those screens.
The one that like existed in Hot Topic to buy. No, could be something different.
Don't make fun of me. I was there buying it.
Oh, come on.
That was a shot.
Look! I just recently got this as a gift. I mean, people still know, man. Come on,
Yeah.
Look, and talking about the Balrog, it's a wonderful point, and we highlight of the trailer. But we can make all the points we want about lawyers and rooms, but once it's on screen, Alex, you're right. You just want to pull open books or maps or watch videos, but watching Nerd of the Rings, and he's got some great videos explaining some of the lore and stuff that I want to catch up on or get to know more of. You just want to go in the world, and it could be as simple as this demon from the depths showing up to bring you back to that place you're familiar with.
I have a lore-ish question. Is that do we know if that's the same Balrog or if that's a different one? Because I saw people talking about the horns looking a little different.
He doesn't have wings.
It's cousin Pete. They hung out together. Yeah, they went to art school together. Now they're different depths.
I think it's supposed to be the same one, because there were many Balrogs back in the day, but it showed that leaf and it looked like it was in Moria. Like, we saw veins of Mithril. And then it lands and catches on fire. So I assumed that's them delving too greedily and too deep and awakening something.
Which is shocking, because like, out of all of the key, put it in Star Wars terms, your Yavin level events, that's one of them that everyone knows, talks about. The characters have lingering fear because of it when Khazad-dûm fell. It's like, you're going to put that in the first season? That's really intriguing.
And I don't really remember if all the dwarves knew what happened, or if Khazad-dûm just gets wiped out and everyone's like, where'd everyone go? And then thousands of years later, Balin's like, I'm going to go back in there and try to take it back. Or no, it wasn't even that. They inhabited Moria before that.
Well, at least in the Jack, again, it's like, what's book lore and what's in the Hobbit? Like in the Hobbit, Thorin and them go to try to take Moria.
Yeah.
And that's when Oakenshield happens.
Yeah. I'm rusty, but I'm excited, like Molly said, to see Moria at its height. And I'm a sucker for seeing ruins in their heyday and vice versa, seeing something that was at its height and then jump 1,000 years in the future and see it all terrible.
Jumping a little for a second to House of the Dragon, I was really excited to see a fully functional domed dragon pit. the one that we pretty much end Game of Thrones season 8 in. I'm with you, Alex. It's like maps and ruins, or playing or looking at old photos of San Diego in 1901, where you're like, oh yeah, I've crossed that street. It's the same street. I don't know. I'm with you, and that's
it's really satisfying. There's something weirdly satisfying.
These worlds and the Tolkiens and the George R.R.'s who put together, and yes, George too, Lucas, but like. Particularly these two worlds where you can feel that in the designs and what you're seeing. So I totally will get you geeked up. Any special moments from the trailers, Alex and Molly, that you want to talk about? We mentioned the Balrog, but anything else kind of get you in this trailer?
I mean, whoever the like shaved head, bleached hair person is, I don't know if that's supposed to be Sauron or if it's like some crazy magical priestess person, but I'm digging the look, and I want to know more.
Is that the one that you tweeted you wanted to cosplay as? Is that what I saw?
Yeah, I was like, okay, I'm gonna shave my head. That's that.
That's fair.
I support it.
This is part of the big speculation around it. Alden and I were talking off air. We want to make sure we don't go too far down prediction paths and the many names and forms of Sauron and all that kind of stuff. But Alex, your thoughts on that moment too, and what it might mean for the show?
I'm assuming that's Sauron for now, in like his hey, I'm just a chill, cool guy who knows how to make rings state.
Oh yeah, he looks real chill. He looks really chill.
Well, he's not smiling, he's doing that for the sake of the audience. But when he shows up to the elves, he's friendly. I don't know. That's how I'm seeing it.
It's a fair version of them. I understand. Yeah.
But I also really liked when we saw, again, I don't know if it was Sauron, but when that old man was scaring that poor child. Like, do you know the name Sauron? And then, like the claws come out, the armored claws. That's
the same child that looks to have a Morgul blade. Yeah, I'm assuming that's a Morgul blade. They've made theirs way more fantasy and metal looking than we're used to from the Jackson films.
And he's got like a mark on his arm. It's not the mark of Sauron, but he has like some kind of mark there.
Marks aren't good in these shows. Marks aren't necessarily good in these shows.
That's what I've learned.
And Robert and Bilbo Baggins coming in with some Look, the theories are fun. They're certainly not everything. We love exploring the themes more than anything around here. But at this point, this is part of the joy. You're seeing it. You're seeing, what Molly wants to dress like for Halloween. And you're like, that could be an evil person. And we're on board for it. So I get it.
Yeah, I know that it's I can't believe I have to say this. I know it's a very controversial hot button issue, seeing people with short hair in this era. Lots of people angry at Elrond and Celebrimbor having short hair. Lots of people also angry at Slim Sauron or Sauron Shady, depending on which version you want to go with. And you can't hurt me because I like Eminem too, internet. But it's interesting to see. Like I was telling Ken off air, like his fair form is supposed to be Anatar. This actor is apparently not credited with that name, so who knows? Maybe they're like, let's make up some other forms. We'll cast 20 hot young people, and he'll just, we got 5 seasons to fill. I don't know, but it's exciting.
Yeah, bringing up the Meteor Man, that made me think of the part in the trailer where you like see like a bird's eye view of him and like all the fire. And it kind of like there's a circle there, so it's kind of like the ring. But then you see like it kind of looks like the eye too.
Oh, it definitely looks like
where
the
he's
eye.
sitting.
Yeah. The eye almost forms in scratches too on the trailer.
Yeah,
nice.
It's a nice touch.
To have the eye in other forms is a similar challenge to that ring. Like there are some things where everyone knows exactly what it's supposed to be. I mean, we see shots of Elendil across this trailer and the previous ones, but it's like Elendil carries Narsil. Like, how do you reinterpret Narsil? How do you reinterpret the eye? It's really interesting and fun. I like that we're able to say, well, that's that person's version of it. Like I grew up reading comics, so like I'm used to the artist changing, and I think that sort of changed your brain a little bit.
That's a great point. We're talking about moments we love from this trailer here, but I want to address Big Lou's comment here. Big Lou's Clubhouse, great YouTube channel if you need help on building things. Big Lou, sorry, Big Lou, I didn't have my shirt this time. He says, I'm still confused the exact time frame of the show. And look, we want to set the tone right here, right now for Casterly Talk. We want to be able to enjoy the audience members of all levels. And Lou, this is an important question. It is about 1,000 years. It's the second age, third age. Alex, run through a little bit of the timeline. We know the events might be condensed, but timeline to what a lot of the general public knows.
Okay, so yeah, there's 4 ages of Middle Earth, the one that we mostly know that the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit take place in is the third age. The show is going to take place in the second age, and then the first age is kind of like creation, the reign of Melkor, who was the first Dark Lord. I think in one of the trailers, Galadriel says something like, the enemy is still out there. Elrond is like, the fight is over. They're referring more to Melkor, but Sauron was one of his, or was his chief lieutenant. And so Sauron is still alive and around. I think he is supposed to be imprisoned somewhere, but he comes back in the second age. And Molly and I were talking about this. I think it's interesting that it's like the opposite of power creep, which, you know, most franchises, you fight like a foot soldier, and then you fight someone stronger and someone stronger. And every season, everything gets worse. But this is like, no, the elves took care of the big bad in the first age. And now we're dealing with the step down.
It's a great point. There's a lot of original sin type myth stuff going on, like whether that's like kinslayings, whatever that vision she has in the second trailer. But that's a great point too. I mean, in my mind, like you were talking, because it's impossible for the 4 of us to not think of Star Wars. It's as if Palpatine was defeated in New Hope, and then Vader took the top spot for 2 more movies. Like if Vader never came back to the light and actually got the chair, like that would be what Sauron is. Sauron is an opportunist who fell to the dark and then is like, haha, okay, I'll hide until next time. Haha again. Like he's just constantly trying a lot of the same things too. Which is why it's like sad sort of to see all these nice characters get.
I'm keeping my eye on chat to see if Bill Bro Baggins chimes in, but we were talking about maybe it's because, you know, the elves are a lot stronger than men, and so it's kind of like they took care of the big bad, but Tolkien had to make the enemy weaker, because in the third age the elves are leaving, they're mostly gone, and so now we need a villain that men and hobbits can defeat.
Because as we know, who will you turn to? The dwarves? They care for nothing.
That's right. That's
Dwarf shade.
Tolkien talks about the long defeat, says Bill Bro Baggins. It's interesting to apply that to the thought of Morgoth and Sauron. So
I mean, that's I guess to apply that to Star Wars as well. Just the idea that, you know, you beat the Empire, but evil still remains. The First Order can come back if you're not diligent.
Look at this. Alex is leading us into some theme talks. We're almost there. Evil does not sleep is one of the quotes that jumped out at me. I love a lot of the big quotes, and Robert Meadows, I'll bring that up again if you're watching live on YouTube, says, find the light and the shadow will not find you. Favorite quote from the trailer, very Star Wars 2. Yeah, absolutely. And this is one of the things Alden and I have been talking about here when it comes to Rings of Power, Lord of the Rings, that world. It is a more optimistic tone. That's what even the showrunners have talked about. This is they use that family-friendly term, but Star Wars is not unlike that, of course. And we love dealing with that. We love the reality, those complicated gray areas that Game of Thrones and the World of Ice and Fire talks about. I always say that World of Ice and Fire, looks at the world as it is, where something like Star Wars and Lord of the Rings looks at what could be, and there's great power and hope in that there. So are you, Alex and Molly, are you connecting? Are you ready to connect with those themes that also might be similar to what we discuss every week in Star Wars? How do you feel about the tone that the show's trying to set here, Alex?
Yeah, I mean, that's your fault partially. All you and Joseph and Alden and your stupid Twitter threads that I like. I'm constantly thinking about that kind of stuff.
I'm gonna clip that out as an endorsement, by the way.
Stupid thread.
New pin tweet.
Oh, here comes another one. Sit there and scroll through. Yeah, it's pretty good. But
I mean, it's awesome to do what we do, but then have the ability to, like, once this show comes out, to watch it and then go listen to other people who are like much more knowledgeable talk about it and break down the themes, and then you're like, oh yeah, this relates totally to what we talk about all the time over here in Star Wars.
Yeah, no, even watching, I was reading some of the quotes about Peter Jackson, because about 2018, 2019, there were some thoughts that there would be a direct continuation or connection to his world, and there was some consulting going to happen, and then, no, that's not the case, blah, blah, blah. We've discussed that stuff already. But Jackson's even saying, I'm looking forward to watching this as a Tolkien fan, because I didn't really get to watch my movies. I was making them, I was in them, and I could never see it any other way. So for us, smaller scale. We didn't make the Lord of the Rings trilogies here, but as Star Wars podcasters and pundits and authors, it is fun to I'm going to have a little bit of a generation removed. Going to watch this with my heart, watch with my eyes, and not worry about some of the other big stuff. We are going to cover it here on the channel, but I'm going to look at it in a different way. I don't know if I'm the only one who feels the relief from that, Alden.
No, I definitely feel the relief from that. I mean, like you joked there, we didn't make Lord of the Rings. What did I make? I made Lord of the Rings online characters. And that was enough for me. And that level of fun of I get to walk around this place again. I get to see the even small things that are just fan things that'll mean more later, like the Harfoots being proto hobbits, founding the Shire. It's like I want to see them dig those hobbit holes. Like that stuff is so satisfying to me. We talked about like Khazad-dûm seeing something in its former glory. They got the Battle of Jeddah audiobook coming out on the Star Wars side. It's like I want to see that statue fall. Even though it's going to be sad. So that type of stuff is just, it is the less pressure scenario, but to dig in and to have more to tweet about, that's important to me. Fodder.
We even got Sean Sullivan excited. If you can get Sully excited, you've won the day. Molly, I definitely want to kick it to you there about that theme kind of thing and the tone. And from you and I are kind of watching the show in the same spot. Know the world, love the world, don't know every detail. Are you ready for what's coming down the line in terms of this big battle between good and light and bad, dark and good and bad, dark and light is what I'm trying to say. And how you feeling about that going in?
Yeah, I mean that's just good storytelling at the most basic level, right? The fight between good and bad. But I was gonna say one of my favorite parts about Fellowship of the Ring is like how the movie starts by like going into all this history, this like intensely rich history. And like we're probably gonna get a lot of that again here, where they're like explaining stuff from the first age and going more further back into the history of this world. And that's something that I'm really, really excited to learn more about. And it looks like we'll be getting, flashbacks and flash forwards of battles to come and things like that. So being able to kind of like piece this world together from what I already know and what I'm going to learn in this show is exciting to me.
And that's the fun part of prequel storytelling, right? Like, because we experience it obviously with Star Wars right now. Better Call Saul is rocking my world every week, and that's a prequel too, and and a sequel. But you find sort of yourself looking at like Isildur in the show as a young sailor, but we know that the looming destiny is to fail, is to succeed in one way, but then set up the next generation for failure by falling and not finishing the job. We know that Elrond will lose faith, at least mostly, in men. We know Galadriel, the man maiden, as her mother called her, will end up kind of a recluse. There's a tragedy hanging over it, like even if it's good and exciting.
Yeah, Alex, you were going to say?
Oh yeah, Molly talking about the prequels and stuff, and I think that there's probably going to be a prologue like Lord of the Rings starts with. I think that'd be really neat. But I just was kind of wondering, we were talking about how this show might condense history, but it could do what like the Book of Boba Fett and lots of other shows have done recently. We could do a lot of flashing back and forth. I think that would be really hard to follow, but I wonder if some of these characters who aren't supposed to be around until after the rings are forged, maybe they really won't be, but we're going to see kind of
I love the idea. I love it. I'm sorry, I didn't chuckle at the idea. I just chuckled thinking about the internet if they tried it. Just because like you mentioned Book of Boba Fett, it's like people couldn't handle that. And so it's like, what's good? Like I think about like the Greta Gerwig Little Women. She only indicates what time you're in by the warmth of the colors, and how even that threw people. So you would literally need to do like Avengers level title cards, like the first stage.
1,000 years into the future, back to the past.
It all goes back to the 90s. We need Wayne's World. The only way you know. Only way you know. Let's get to, well, Alden, do you have any moments? I might have skipped on you on some of the moments. Anything that reached out, then we'll get to some of the bigger themes talk. Discuss. Yeah,
there was a lot of those visuals with the elves. I'm a sucker for Tolkien's elves. I just find them to be so interesting. Mostly because I feel like I could fit into the other three main race categories, but I couldn't be an elf. I could easily be a dwarf. I could very easily be a hobbit, but I couldn't be an elf, and that's what attracts me to them. So Arandir, this new character, sort of in the Tauriel spot of like, we don't know anything about him because he's original. So he's exciting to me. He seems to have all of the best shot action sequences thus far. Seems to be a very active player. I know he's going to have a forbidden romance. That excites me because I love the Aragorn and Arwen story arc. So if we can echo that, Baron, Luthien, all that stuff. So that's what stuck out to me the most. Is just anything with them, seeing them have dinner, Elrond, Celebrimbor, Gil-galad, all that stuff.
I love dinner scenes. That's all I love. Dinner scenes. Arandir. Oh man, he's got some of the best shots in this trailer. Some of the creepiest things going on.
Chain flip, slow chain flip.
Looks great. Things going on there. Alden, there were some, as always, some big themes in this trailer, and some that are echoing previous conversations and previous main teaser reveals. But take us through some of that as we round out the discussion on Rings of Power.
Yeah, the thing that fascinated me the most about this is that it is the most Sauron heavy thing we've had, which on a nice marketing level, it's telling everybody, if there was any ambiguity about whether or not we were going to go to what you remember, let's get rid of that. Sauron, here's his name. We're going to hint at him a bunch. But they make it a point to express how he has many names and to have this now online conversation of, is that him or is it not? He's whoever he needs to be to succeed. He's sort of like a social climber, but on an evil goth level. And then we move that over into a thematic back and forth with the good guys, where one of these women, whether it's, I said here, I'm not sure, whether it's Galadriel, whether it's Queen Miriel, the queen of the Numenorians, someone says each of us must decide who we shall be. And that's a lack of ambiguity. That's truth. That's getting rid of any sort of back and forth. Like, yes, we have like 80 languages, but who really are you? Because we're fighting somebody that does not abide by those rules. And so we have to have truth. And I think that's really strong. Like, you have to be able to come into your own. And that's very universal and inspiring for all kinds of viewers.
Yeah. And Alden, you were pointing out even off air with me, this idea of, we're already facing Sauron, who has many names, many forms. This quest for power will take him to wherever he wants to go to do what he has to do versus, on the light side, this idea of decide who you want to be, decide who you're going to be in this fight for evil, this evil that never sleeps. It's big stuff. It's classic stuff. We're not talking about brand new themes introduced.
No, it's not at all. And we know how it goes. At least most of us. Somewhere out there will be somebody that has never watched the Jackson films and watches this, which is just crazy. And I want to talk to that person.
It's like when my friend was like, I showed my wife episodes 1, 2, and 3, and she was really upset that kid became Darth Vader. I was jealous of her.
That shocks me. Yeah, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So, but for those of us that know what defeats Sauron, at least ultimately, at least besides, Frodo, obviously, but it's the idea of Aragorn finally stopping the ruse, become who you were born to be, set aside the ranger. Everyone here has to do that.
Which is that there in some of my most depressed hours of my life, I have watched Return of the King just to get to that scene. And then just watch it over and over. And
immediately start bawling when the music, and he's holding the sword.
It's something I have faced in my own life about knowing I could be something, but I've run away from it, or the work scares me, or just the depression is a haze that you have to battle through. And that's what I love. All these themes are timeless. They're replayed over and over in some of our modern myths, but this is why it's important. So Alex, Molly, we're talking big theme stuff here. What are you pulling from this trailer? What are you just excited to discuss in this show, in this big battle between good and evil?
Man, I hadn't thought about it that deeply at all.
Me neither. I was going to say, I like how much they use trees, because I understand how trees work. And there's a lot of important trees in Lord of the Rings. And sometimes they're dead and sometimes they're not dead. And when they're not dead, that's a better time.
Yeah. And sometimes they're super not dead and they literally walk and talk.
Yeah.
Yes.
The opposite of that. Yeah. I mean, I thought it was orcs that grabbed Arandir at the end of this, but someone said, what if it's Ents?
Give me the Ent wives.
That's right. Wasn't that what Colbert said at the Comic-Con panel? Didn't he ask about Ent wives? I saw that somewhere.
Yeah. He was so great. So happy about that. I was so happy to see him back. That's the necessary ingredient.
Yeah. And then they said something like, you may have already seen one in the trailer. I don't know. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Alex, what's grabbing you here? We love discussing the why in Star Wars. There's some big whys in this series.
Man, I should have rewatched the trailer. I guess, I mean, we already kind of talked about it, but just that idea of staying diligent and making sure evil doesn't rise again, because Galadriel seems to be the only one on board with the idea that no, the enemy is still out there. And Elrond's like, put down your sword, come party with me and the dwarves. Like, which I'm really excited to see that too, seeing Elrond and Durin like actually be buddies. And that's something I've just reread in the Silmarillion, that it's like Durin was the one that got the most friendly with the elves, and I'm like, good for all of you putting aside your differences.
Well,
and,
that dinner scene,
friends.
that dinner scene has to be them celebrating the Mithril, right?
I have no idea.
Cheersing.
That's a great idea. I love that.
Yeah.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah, no, the quote that emerged that I in this trailer that I absolutely loved is "Together we can survive this," and that's again a timeless theme there. I'm thinking even some of the stuff late in Game of Thrones season 7 and 8, when you have characters like Davos and Jon Snow saying we must put aside our differences. There's more problems, bigger problems to deal with, and yeah, we do kind of know where some of this ends up. We do know where the dwarves go, the elves go, and everyone kind of has their fill of each other. But again, to just explore that theme in 2022 with swords and wizards and dragons is going to be pretty valuable, I would think. Anything else, Alden, that jumped out and emerged for you?
No, just building off of what Alex said. I mean, it connects with so much of what's relevant right now. You see it in Star Wars with people having ignored Leia and having, branded her as a crazy in the Senate. And then we saw what happened. And same thing's happening here with Galadriel. It happens in Star Trek. Like, we've never even seen a Romulan. Who cares? You cannot turn a blind eye to these things. And that's such an important lesson that the stories keep blatantly telling us. And to know that, I mean, it's just sad again to know that it takes so long for this unity to happen, for the friendship of Legolas and Gimli. It's going to be a long time before that's a thing. And that fourth age being a new era is thousands upon thousands of years off. And building off what you said, Ken, about your favorite quote of "Together we can survive this." It's like the narrator comes in and is like, "You're a Númenorian. You don't. Like, this is a doomed place." It's interesting.
Yeah, and I love the echoing, Leia in the sequel era, especially in the beginning, being branded a warmonger because she's talking about the evil has returned, actually never left. And you got Padme all through the prequel trilogy saying the truth, and every Jedi mansplaining her theories and thoughts away, which are all correct. So the point is, Molly, we all should just listen to you today.
Oh, yeah, well.
She's like, you don't already?
Yes,
what?
yes.
What? Par for the course for up from.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Any big final thoughts, Alex and Molly? We are excited for Rings of Power. I'm so excited you are excited for it. We know you spend a lot of time in the Star Wars world like us, but this is pretty fun. Any final big thoughts for this trailer as you head into the show, which debuts September 2nd now? Gosh, I always forget. There's so many dates now. Yes.
Oh yeah, it comes out while we were at Dragon Con. So.
Yeah, we're gonna have to figure that out.
There you go. Molly, your final big thoughts on this show and trailer?
I'm just so excited to see, because like one of my favorite things of the original trilogy is just the Fellowship itself, and seeing all these different kinds of people in this world have to work together for the greater good, and we're gonna get to see that again with some familiar characters and some new characters. So that's what it's all about. Different people having to work together.
I love that. Alex, you?
I'm just excited, like I said, to see this as a story, because so much of Tolkien's writing is hard to digest outside of The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. And then eventually they got Children of Húrin and The Fall of Gondolin published. But, most of the story of the Second Age you have to get from the appendices or the untold tales or the letters that he wrote. Yeah. And just to be able to see it linearly and in a story fashion, I'm excited for that.
Yeah, a great time to be a nerd, no matter what your favorite property is. Great time. Alden, final big thoughts on this trailer, and did it do in the end? Did it do what it needed to do? I hate to use that word "needed" around these parts, but there's a lot of pressure on a $1 billion show. This was the big trailer going into the show. How do you feel about it right now?
Well, I think Jeff Bezos's blood boy will be paid. I think that he's going to be able to. This is not going to fail. It's going to be successful. We're going to be able to keep him going. And I think that this show did for me, what I need, want, hope it would do, which is in a time where there's so many cynical narratives and people are bashing their heads against the wall because they can't figure out how to get a Superman movie off the ground, looks at the camera directly at Warner and the whole internet. It's like to see something that's just unabashedly hopeful and unabashedly light and just says things about finding light, and all of that is just really necessary. And having it, again, for our purposes, as our counter programming to the fall of this incestuous, awful, burn them alive family on this side, I'm going to need both at the same time. I'm going to need the drama, and then I'm going to need to come down with the Harfoots and Galadriel and just watch niceness.
It's yes, and perhaps a little more clothes on in one of the shows than the other, but we'll see. We'll see.
Perhaps we can hope that the Harfoots just get down. There was.
I remember that a while back.
Yeah.
Well, there was intimacy coordinator was hired for Lord of the Rings. That was known. There's some discussions around it, and that kind of prompted some of the discussions from the showrunners to say, family friendly. Maybe there's some smooching with the lights off, but family friendly. But we'll see. We'll see. I'm not saying no to it. You know what I mean? It could happen.
Beautiful people with swords. That's it.
Just a bunch of free love in the Middle Earth world. Say, on that note, on that wonderful awkward note that I've created for myself here, we're going to transition to a show where we're probably going to see some close off House of the Dragon. Alex and Molly, like I said before, you're welcome to stick around. We're going to take some live calls here. We got people checking in. We're going to take questions from the audience. I know you're both Game of Thrones fans as well. You're welcome to stay, but if you got to go, I don't know, live your lives, you can do that.
I think we have a date with the television ourselves. It is almost 10 here.
That is right. Yes, I'm blessed to be almost 7:00 in beautiful Burbank, but I know you all three are on the East Coast. So there you go.
Over here.
Mr. Burbank, indeed. We really appreciate you coming by, shining a light here on the channel and podcast as we get ready to cover these shows. And hopefully not the last time we see you around these parts. You open invitation to come back at any time.
I'd definitely talk about the show when it's actually on.
Yes.
Love that.
And when he doesn't have to edit and publish, the best.
Yeah. Also, while Andor's, let's do it before Bad Batch starts. Let's do that.
That's yeah. It's going to be an interesting, fun fall around these parts if you're a nerd podcaster. Well, Alex and Molly of Star Wars Explained, thank you so much for watching. You all can follow them and watch their channel, Star Wars Explained. We'll throw some links in this video when I republish it or re-get it out there after it's live. Thank you all, my friends. Have a good night.
See you. Thanks.
Bye, guys.
Oh, there we go. Let's get that Alex out of there. Good folks, those Damons. Good folks, those Damons, Alden.
Yeah, I think they have a future in this whole content thing. Personally,
they should do some YouTube stuff there. There you go. We are going to talk House of the Dragons. If you are a Patreon supporter of mine, which is a little separate from Casterly Talk, but it all kind of falls under there, I've put a StreamYard link over there in the Discord. You're welcome to call in live. But in the time remaining here, Alden and I are going to talk a little bit about House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones at San Diego Comic-Con, which is a thing. That's our tradition. I always talk the stories, especially 2013, 2014, 2015. Staying in the same hotel with the cast and just the craziness around there, being at parties where, I got introduced to Kit Harington and Richard Madden, like my first night in Comic-Con. And it was like meeting rock stars on another level. And then George R. R. Martin walked into one of the parties and like the entire party stopped. And so I associate Game of Thrones with Comic-Con. So it was fun, Alden. I'll start the conversation here to just see that there was a presence. It was a Hall H presence, and it was highly anticipated and very well received. Did you get that feeling from afar? And how do you feel about that Comic-Con tradition?
I think that it speaks to a special sort of place in our culture of knowing sort of how we associate these properties with seasons, like how Star Wars became very wintry over the past few years. Game of Thrones does have that spring summer transition sort of locked into my mind, probably because of Comic-Con. And so to see the pop-up that they had set up, that is the Red Keep and everything that they did. And I mean, I love seeing like CM Punk sitting on the Iron Throne with all the AEW wrestlers around him. Like that makes me feel like, look at celebrities with the throne again. Like that to me, it's such a surface, like silly way to feel like we're back. But that was a part of it. It was everyone. I mean, even they invited there was a story like Benioff and Weiss invited Queen Elizabeth to sit on it, and she declined because she's prohibited from sitting on a different throne.
Hey,
like I love stuff like that. So I more of that makes it feel right.
Got to protect that branding. Great stuff here. They had a full extended trailer, the one they showed in Hall H. I watched that. You know, I got to be honest, I could see some of the new stuff jumped out at me, but it was nothing that was, I thought, groundbreaking or changing, game changing. I think we're just ready for the show to drop. Did you watch any of the Hall H panel highlights or see the panel?
I did. Yeah, I watched a few postings, a few parts. I'm sure by now somebody has probably the full one in HD. It's always just a scramble to see who can get this.
I saw one today. You get to hear a lot of crowd talking. At one point, someone says, "We should move," and but you still get to watch it.
Yeah, exactly. So but it was a great vibe. I think that everything that's come out of this recently and at Comic-Con, these creators, I think, are really good communicators, which is a difficult skill, and it's a difficult skill to master. Sometimes artists they speak through their work, and that's fine, and that's totally cool. But I think that this cast and these creators have been really good about staying on message. But yeah, it's been solid.
Hey, we got our first live question coming in here. We are right now broadcasting live on the YouTube channel. If you're listening later on the podcast, don't forget to take us in on both spots. We're going to have some YouTube exclusive content, some House of the Dragon prep videos coming your way shortly. So we'll always recognize that there's two different mediums that you can enjoy us in. But right now, she is the host of many podcasts, including the Galactic Podcast, looking at the Star Wars world. She promised some juicy questions. So Lauren Romo is here. How you doing, Romo? It's fun to talk Game of Thrones with you.
I know. Aldi, what's going on, buddy?
How are you, my friend?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Yeah, Game of Thrones. I'm so excited.
Where are you at? Where are you at right now? Where are you at with this?
Yeah, so for me, I'm definitely not. I haven't read any of the books, so I am very much in the mind frame, kind of like what Molly was talking about with Lord of the Rings. Like, I'm not material. Like, I'm just strictly TV show. Like, that's my entry. So I'm very excited to get back into Westeros. Like, I am so excited to get back into this world of just the political likeness of it, the magic, the sci-fi energy. Like, I'm just so excited, ready to get back into Westeros. Like, I'm just so pumped. Yeah. So the one thing that I loved about the trailer, I know you guys were talking about it, is the commonality between Andor in this trailer with the drums and the bells.
Oh, yeah.
Put a good drum or bell beat, you got me on a trailer. Like, I was sold so hard. That music was so good in this trailer, and I think that's really a big thing for me because I love the music of the show. Like, I know you guys are big on themes and music. Like, that was really good. Like, the music was just so good in this last trailer, like 100%.
Yeah, it continues to be something I'm so excited about with Ramin Djawadi and seeing what he's might have done with the trailer. And I got to tell you, I've stopped. I have not researched anything of can I listen to the music anywhere? Is that trailer the one that's going to be the theme, or is it just trailers? I have not. Because I kind of want to be surprised. And Will McLean in chat's got a question here saying, do we think the intro thing is with a map thing or something different? And we, Alden and I kind of touched upon it last week. I never want to feel entitled or act entitled, but I kind of got this. If you don't show me some sort of map and some sort of similar music with those drums, I'm going to have a little second of, all right, okay. I'll have to accept this here because the music is so good. Alden, I know you're kind of in the same boat.
Absolutely. I mean, just to echo everything that you said, Lauren, like the whole build of those drums puts you in the mood. I mean, again, like you, like Ken, like I'm a sucker for the right musical choices, the right needle drop. The Guardians of the Galaxy 3 teaser, they used Flaming Lips in it. And even though it wasn't released, once they said they'd used it, I was like, oh, it's gonna break my heart. So it's like, it worked here, and I'm in the same spot too, where I joked last week. I've lost sleep thinking about, is it going to be a Game of Thrones sort of like Targaryen remix? Like, what are they gonna like? How is it going to be? Are you going to show me the same sort of map shots, but to communicate to the viewer what's changed and what hasn't?
Yeah,
it's a very. If they didn't get Djawadi, I'd be really nervous for a new person. But thankfully. Yeah. Is a rock star.
Yeah, like John Williams in Star Wars, right? Like, you got to have that.
Yeah, sorry, Lauren, I cut you off. I'll kick it back to you.
Good.
Yeah. I'm always open to new composers. I love what Natalie Holt did. Louis Göransson and Mandalorian has just been groundbreaking. But John is Johnny Williams. He's done some good things. So Ramin Djawadi, and I've seen the Game of Thrones in concert twice now, and it's just like, the dude is a rock star. At one point, he goes out there with a guitar and just wails with a guitar solo and some of the stuff. He's a rock star, and it just feels right. So, Lauren, I think it was great to bring up the music there. Before you have any more questions for us, Lauren, I want to throw something back to you. I love where you are as a fan. As hey, I haven't taken the deep dive into the books. I love the show. I live in that world. I'm excited it's back. How are you feeling going in with these Targaryens and names that might be new to you, at least their first names? Even if you're familiar with the last names, how are you feeling right now in terms of the lore and the world that you're about to climb back into?
Yeah, I'm excited because I think the Targaryens have always been one of those families, even in Game of Thrones. Obviously we knew Dany, and then obviously her brother, and obviously we know later on Jon is within that family. But like, we just hear of these stories of these people with dragons who conquered Westeros. So now that we get to like kind of see it or live in a world where this family is dominating, not just like ruling, but like dominating this entire world, like with a lot of dragons, that's going to be cool. I mean, you sold me on the idea of like having a show on them, but like now it's really going to be interesting because now it feels like, to me, just watching the trailer, it's like the beginning of the downfall of this family. So like we're at like seeing them at their peak, and now it's slowly going down because of this this internal family struggle that it seems to me that we're going to be getting, and obviously the politics. I can't wait to get back to the Game of Thrones politics. Like, I love that so much.
We're the show's got some some starting points and some timeline and time lapsing and jumping and everything. We know that, but basically, essentially, you're talking about a 70-year era of peace with Jaehaerys, who's the father of Viserys the first, following Maegor the Cruel, who was just a horrible, tyrannical piece of bleep. So the realm sets in peace, and that is that peace real? Is it a false peace? And that's all the stuff that's there. Love that there. Love where you are with that. And Big Lou has another question here, and then Lauren, I know you probably have some more questions to ask here tonight, but Big Lou says Arya Tywin at Harrenhal is one of my favorite sequences, which is wonderful. It is show only, and it is amazing. Is the characters Arya talking about that scene the ones who are in this show? Not necessarily. She's mostly talking about Aegon, Visenya, and Rhaenys, right? It's been a couple years since I watched season 2, right, Alden?
I think you're right. It sounds right. Again, I'm not. It's also been a little bit for me, but I'm pretty sure this was like way back, like your earliest names.
Yeah. So talk about Aegon and his sisters, which is the conquering, which is roughly, we're looking at about 100 years or so from the start of this show. The conquest, Aegon's conquest being about 300 years prior to the events of Song of Ice and Fire and Game of Thrones, Lou. So you're about 200 years before Game of Thrones, and you're about 100 years removed from some of the stuff that Arya's talking about. But that said, they're at Harrenhal, which is a castle, a place we're going to see in this show. We're going to see a lot of King's Landing, and it's going to be familiar territory, just going to look shiny and new in some spots. So.
Yeah, and for that conversation to bring up Arya is important in a lot of ways, with Rhaenyra being the focus here. I spent some time with Rhaenyra a couple days ago for a video you're all going to see soon here on the channel, and just being in there's so many parallels of, because I could not control the circumstances of my birth. I was born a princess. I was born a lady. It's not my fault. I have all these interests. I have all this stuff. And Arya always connected with those people. So even if Rhaenyra wasn't one of the names, we're going to draw that parallel a lot, which is exciting.
Absolutely. The spiritual canon, emotional canon will be there as much. Yeah. Big Lou says, thanks so much. So many of the names sound so alike. Yes. Between Rings of Power and House of the Dragon, there's going to be a lot of what now, who, that is also who now.
Or just repeated, which is even funnier to me. Like the ones that sound similar are bad enough, but it's like, if like someone just decided in your family, Ken, like, I'm naming my son Ken Napzok the second, even without your consent, like without you.
It's like George Foreman naming his 5 sons George Foreman 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or whatever that is. That's
Prince Michael Jackson the first and Prince Michael
it's all
Jackson the
there.
second.
And again, for those who are watching, we love this world. We love the details. We know so many of the details. I've studied the maps, but we want to approach House of the Dragon much like we approach Game of Thrones, which is just taking fans of all levels of interest. All are welcome. Big table here. And I don't want anyone in our chat to feel like you have to know all the exact details. We're going to take this show kind of as it lays, and we're going to take the themes that are presented every week, and we're going to have fun with the characters as we kind of discover and rediscover this world for ourselves here. You know
Lou.
what I mean? Big Lou. Big Lou says, there are 5 Louis in my family. I am the middle one. So then there you go. Louis the Third. There you are. Robo, any other thoughts? Any other big questions in your mind coming out of this Comic-Con weekend?
I mean, just obviously just huge. Can't wait to get back into this world. But okay, so obviously you guys are really deep lore. You guys know a lot about the stories, and I know this is, correct me if I'm wrong, based off of Blood and Fire, the book ish.
Flip it in reverse. Fire and Blood.
Fire and Blood.
Volume
Fire
1.
and Blood.
Yeah.
Fire and Blood.
Yeah.
So this is kind of following that book a little bit. So for me as a viewer that again have not read the books, I'm tempted to start like getting into it, but then I'm like, well, do I want to hold back and be surprised like I was with the show Game of Thrones without not going into that? So like as like again, as somebody that you guys know the material and probably know maybe some surprises that might happen, like do you tell people like me like, yeah, read it, or like hold off, wait a minute until like the show comes out and then maybe get into it?
At this point, we're so close. I almost might say hold off on Fire and Blood. And the question of reading Fire and Blood without reading Song of Ice and Fire, or even some of the other, Dunk and Egg and all that kind of stuff, I don't know. Read it all. I guess eventually you can get there. I think you're so close. The only thing about Fire and Blood, it's a history book, and it reads like a fun, engaging history book. And this is the story that jumps out. This is one I told a friend, like, hey, this is the part of Fire and Blood that you're turning the page going, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening. This is a juicy part of the story. But yeah, I think you're so close. Hold off, because then you might not be disappointed if you don't get to see Mushroom. That's all I'll say.
Okay.
That's all I'll say.
It's stuff like that too, where even the most, like the three of us, we're all open and accepting fans of the things we love. And if they make a change, we just examine the change. I'm not going to be upset about the change. But with adaptations, I do caution my friends a lot, and I practice it too. Like I chose to watch Hunger Games, not read it, because I know that even the most accepting person, in the back of your brain, you become conditioned in positive ways, even, but that positive way could cause just a little bit of deflating sometimes, not in a bad way. But if you really love that scene, then that's the thing they change. You want to be able to take it on its terms. So like I told people before Thor Love and Thunder just now a couple weeks ago, do not read The God Butcher to try to find out more about Christian Bale's character, because this is Taika Waititi and he's going to Taika it, and it's not going to be what you thought. And not everyone listened to me, and those people had those thoughts.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
That's cool.
Bilbo Braggins in chat says, honestly, I too decided to hold off from reading Fire and Blood until after the first season. I enjoyed the experience of watching GOT blind for the first 2 years. Yeah, it's kind of fun. You can enjoy in different ways. I was a show first book as the seasons happen thing, which I've explained on Casterly Talk before. And so I had 2 wonderful different experiences, being completely surprised by the Red Wedding and also sitting there smugly knowing what was going to happen to the Red Vipers. So you can experience both. Thing I was starting to get into about Fire and Blood, it is a history book of sorts. You could almost start reading it and get some of the other history, the conquest and all that kind of stuff. And I don't feel it would take too much away from this show. You would just maybe feel a little bit more immersed. And then by the time you get to the Civil War, you might hold off. That's one way to look at it. But yeah, you can't be hurt either way, Lauren. That's what I would say.
No, that's good. No, that's good to know, because again, it's one of those lore type of stories, and just how George has written this series. Like it's just so deep. Like it's like, where do I dive in? Like, do I read, like you're saying, the Song of Ice and Fire? Or do I read this first to know kind of more about the Song of Ice and Fire? so it's just a very interesting.
Do I watch
kind
Phantom
of...
Menace? Do I watch A New Hope? It is sort of the same
What order,
sort of
Alden,
like.
do I watch it in?
I tell people that too. With very rarely do I feel like order matters, and maybe a Martin, A Song of Ice and Fire diehard will disagree with me. I don't think that order matters for Song of Ice and Fire, Fire and Blood, or even there's even a textbook that's like textbook World of Ice and Fire, Lauren.
Oh,
that
wow.
is the loose. It's like looser,
Yeah.
So and it's way more than just Targaryen. So like that might even be like a nice like coffee table sort of buffet for you to sort of go through.
Actually, that World of Ice and Fire is a great book. It's a bigger book, at least the version I have. It's one of those you gotta kind of you could squish tofu with it if you need a drink of tofu. And that's actually a good kind of if you're just Lauren, if you're at the point like, hey, I'm ready to get into this world. I don't want to feel super lost. Some of the names and some of the histories. The World of Ice and Fire, or even I use the World of Ice and Fire app. Which is mostly attached to George's lore and George's book world, but it without a doubt it's going to bleed over to Game of Thrones. So I think we'll bleed over to House of the Dragon, and that's just kind of fun. Bring up a map, type in Harrenhal. I want to read about that tonight, and that's just kind of a fun. If you're looking to distract yourself on a phone or an iPad, that's what I use a lot. Too.
But thankfully, this is all. We joke about Star Wars because we all love it and we all have shows, but thankfully it's not like that. I'm glad it's not. Like if they will I ever say no to the Roberts Rebellion TV show? God, no. I would watch that in a second. But that would make this conversation more complicated because it's so close. Then, I would have people like my buddy Trey from Skywalking Through the League. He asked me, can I just start House of the Dragon because I didn't watch GOT? And I was like, thankfully, yes, because it's far enough away. But if there were crossover characters, I'd be like, not really, unfortunately. Yeah. I really recommend this. Yes, you can start with Force Awakens, but I really do recommend, I don't want to sound like a doctor this time. I love being able to be like, go.
Let's go. Great stuff. Lauren, any final thoughts or questions before we move on here?
No, I mean, I'm so excited to get back to this world. I mean, I am with both of you. I think we all really loved the last few seasons of Game of Thrones. Post out of the books, I'm so excited, so pumped. I mean, there's obviously rumors of that Jon Snow show possibly coming. So just more Game of Thrones for me. I'm super excited, super pumped to get back into the world of George R.R. Martin's crazy thoughts. And will he finish the book? Will he not finish the book? That's always a fun debate to read on Twitter. Is will he finish?
Yeah. Will he finish the books? Yeah, George, he brings it up all the time, but I still haven't seen a book, so no.
Right.
Exactly. Lord, thanks so much for calling in. We really appreciate you. Folks, give Lord a follow at Low Road Nose. Listen to her many podcasts, but the Galactic podcast is a great podcast for Star Wars out there as well. Lauren, thank you so much.
Thanks, pals.
All righty. Lauren is here, good calls, but we got another caller coming here. We got about 10 minutes left live here in the show. If you're watching, if you're listening later, we appreciate you listening. Right now, we got the man with the hair and we got the man with the beard. He looks like a Game of Thrones character. Love him. He's one of our dedicated longtime listeners here. Going back to Daily Thrones, which he corrected me in chat, was actually 2017, not 2018. It's Ranger Donald. How are you there, my friend?
Good. Real good. Yeah, 2017. Listen to in my car. I'm doing my security job every day, reading the books. That's where it all started.
Daily Thrones emerged
too long ago. I don't like that.
Ranger Donald used to call in. Thomas the Tall, Thomas Risley, and Eric Monroe, and Alden Diaz used to call in. I do recall, back in the days, back when Alden liked me. It was
when I was young and had promise.
Yeah.
Now I'm here.
Now you're here.
This is the wall. Now I'm here on the wall.
y'all got sent to the wall with me. I apologize for that. Ranger Donald, how you feeling right now? You hyped the BTS videos, the Hall H panel, the extended trailer? Where's your mind take you tonight?
I watched all of it. Every second it came out. I'm about a 9 excitement level. I won't be a 10 till it comes out finally.
Yeah, I get that.
So,
yeah, when it's finally here.
Yeah. But
any questions?
The themes, really.
Yeah.
We didn't get that part of it yet.
Okay. I took a sip of my water and the water splashed back up into my eye, Alden. I almost fell down and you had to take the flag going forward.
Yeah. We don't stop the show for anything. If Ken goes out on his sword on the air, it only helps the algorithm. So now, yeah, I mean, themes wise, I mean, gosh, like where do you even start? I mean, like with Rings of Power, to its benefit, it's not an insult. Wears its themes really on its sleeve, but over here you've got these people that are mostly duplicitous and mostly keeping their stuff to themselves. Thankfully, Rhaenyra and Viserys are very focused on in the promo. And so with Viserys, there's a lot of the difference between familial love, but also love for the realm, but also what's right for the job, versus Rhaenyra, who's having these gender role battles, these societal battles. All that really excites me. But I'm really excited for the hints of other people and what they might bring to the table thematically. I can't fully speak to it yet because it's still early, but like we haven't heard a lot from Otto in these trailers, but he has a presence that sort of hangs over all of it. So where is he going to fall in the great lineage of schemers that we've had?
I love that too. One of the things that emerged for me out of the Hall H panel, and there's some stories on it. I can't remember if it was Olivia Cook or the other performer portraying Alicent, but the idea of Alicent is not the villain in this story. And I think it's easy right now, especially if you're familiar with a little bit of the tale. But even in the trailer, a lot of the focus is on Rhaenyra, as it should be. A lot of the focus is on Viserys, at least in season 1, as it should be. But yeah, you got Alicent here, who's kind of like, I feel my son might have a claim as good as anyone else, and I shall not be overlooked here. And I don't think it's necessarily fair. And I don't think it's been a ton of the discourse, but this idea, I think Alden and Donald, I think I even found myself guilty of it. Well, Alicent's going to be here to all mess things up because she's going to
want. She's the Cersei of this show, right? That's what we all. Everybody thinks she's going to be, and Otto's Tywin, and
yes, and you're right, and that emerged from that great article. But I loved at Hall H kind of being like, yeah, there's certainly shades of that, but she's not just the straight up villain because that doesn't really exist in the show. So, anyways, that's one of the things I love. One of those themes there. Ranger really, Donald, what's jumping out to you?
The theme really is patriarchy and gender. Like, who's really the right fit for this chair? Really, will it be a man or is it a woman? But hey, we always go toward the man because he's a man. We're not going to get a woman here because we can't. Nobody will trust her. We don't listen to her decisions and stuff like that. And they have a big war between them. Of course, we're going to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love building off of that, how we, the viewers, know more than the characters do in terms of like all these guys underestimating the women around them. But it's the women that have been the power players in big ways. Cue the Sept of Baelor exploding, but also small, subtle ways throughout the original show. And so we're coming in now into this prequel, and yeah, there's going to be a lot of new people, but there's going to be a lot of us returning people that will take our knowledge in. And to hear all these discussions, like you're saying, about the throne being wrapped up in patriarchy, but also in this power that allows the patriarchy to dominate the dragons, knowing how all of that ends up turning. I mean, with the dragon destroying the throne as a woman rules, like their house ends up in an entirely different place. To see it here is going to be very compelling.
Yeah, this is a very timely theme in 2022. Unfortunately, I think it's something that's not easily, changed. Unfortunately, again, as we're seeing in our own world, there's idea of not just the patriarchy, but just traditions and standards and these silly things that hold so many people back, not just of genders, but of all kinds of oppression going on out there. To see it in this world, to see it play out in this swords and sandal kind of environment that we all kind of love. I think this show and shows going to always have some things. There's already some stuff out there about, hey, how they might deal with some of the sexual violence and everything. And I think everyone's right to look at it and maybe be a little dubious based on some of the big fumbles in the previous series. But we have some showrunners and some cast members being really open and honest with what these big themes are and seeing the world because we do kind of know the end. We do know that the realm does not want a queen, that the realm doesn't want to allow this, and the men are willing to burn it down, and to try to analyze it from that and just kind of see. I'm curious to see how they just kind of deal with the destruction caused by the fact that people just simply can't acknowledge and allow a woman to be in the position of power, a woman on the throne in this land. I think that's going to be a big overriding theme in 2022 into 2023. It's going to be an interesting discussion around this show.
But at the same time, is Rhaenyra right for the throne? We know in the books she's really not all there. In younger years, she calls the realm's delight. As she gets older, she gets more power hungry, more turmoil. And is she really right for that, or is it somebody else?
Which her close alliance with her uncle, who is controversial, to say the least.
Not Daemon. Daemon's not going to get it.
Yeah,
even though he wants it.
Not the right personality type, that's for sure. I mean, it comes back to that Targaryen coin flip, and we know so much about them that they don't know about themselves and where they're going and where they've been, and it's exciting to see. And in terms of this throne having all this power over people, it's also a story of generations, which I love. I love that even though we haven't seen a lot of Rhaenys, there's that air of, I already got passed up, trust an older woman when I tell you that it's never going to change, and the XYZ, and how the experiences of the parent generation trickle down and how they continue to trickle down when you become the parent generation, because we're going to see young Alicent, but then we're going to see Alicent the mom, and how Alicent the mom changes. And that's going to be interesting too.
Great comment here from Bilbo Braggins live in chat. I legitimately think Song of Ice and Fire is the best fantastical prism to observe our own actual modern day problems. I love that. You say it better than I could, Bill Bro. But that's that thing when I keep saying, and Star Wars, especially if you watch the prequels, they can tie into the politics of the 2015-16 era and into present day, and the politics of the 70s and all that kind of stuff, without a doubt. But I really do believe Star Wars and Lord of the Rings and a lot of those type of franchises deal with what could come, to deal with the choices that are in front of you and what you could do to make the world better. And there's that great power in that. That's why Star Wars uplifts me every day. But I am pulled in by the murky waters of Game of Thrones, because it just makes me even question my own decisions and what I want to do better and how I look at things. And that's why the series and world stays with me. Even the ugliness in it. And I do understand that sometimes the show, or the previous show, and perhaps this one will have some fumbles along the way. I don't want them to, but it's possible. But I still think that this will help. If you want to look at it that way, it can help you look at this world a little bit differently and look at your own place in it. But I don't know. Maybe that's just big pie in the sky dreams, Alden.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we have a lot of pie in the sky dreams. With all of this,
dreams, just pie made by hot pie. It's all there.
That's reasonable and attainable, which I think is the important thing. You're not looking for power, really, in real life. Just momentary satisfaction.
Yeah. I love that. Excuse me, Donald. Any other final thoughts here tonight as we start to wrap this up, and as we head towards the show, August 21st? Almost here.
No, just the favorite quote is Viserys' dream line about dream of 1,000 hoofs racing and swords clashing and shields spurning. Can't wait to hear the rest of that speech as it goes on.
That's a great point. Ranger Don, I love that point. That's been one of my favorite parts of the trailer so far. Just and even just I'm really I'm a fan of Paddy Considine, including his music from Riding the Low, great band. But I just love the Tony strike, and I love everything he's saying about this king as we start to go into this period of time, and this man who is kind, but that does not necessarily make a good ruler. We've seen that kind of play out in Game of Thrones in other ways, but I've talked about even the tone in his voice. There's something that is sweet, calm, and that makes me nervous in the world of Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon. So I agree with you on that one there.
Yeah.
All right. Ranger Donald and Bilbo Baggins agrees with you there. The quote is great. Chills indeed. All right, Donald, thank you for calling in tonight. We always appreciate you. And I've been appreciating you calling in since 2017. I'll get it right this time.
You're welcome.
All right. Thank you, sir. All right, Alden, we are wrapping up the show here tonight. Final thoughts from you. And one of the big things I want to get from you in your final thoughts is coming out of this big event. Comic-Con is back. It came back, like Palpatine, Comic-Con returned. And there's Marvel's always going to dominate the conversation. They're just great at it. Hall H is what it is, but this is a tradition. Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, World of Ice and Fire, Comic-Con, Rings of Power, needed this big trailer. How you feeling coming out of this Comic-Con weekend into these shows?
Spoiled. I feel so spoiled. I feel it was a very heartening few days, even from home, which is sort of the power of these stories and these events where, I mean, I got obviously everything in the Marvel presentation. I got more Star Trek Strange New Worlds. I got Rings of Power. I got House of the Dragon. Like, I am living right now. We even got the small Andor and Acolyte snippets sprinkled in there. So it feels really just creatively invigorated. I think particularly for fantasy, sword and sorcery fantasy, the moment right now that's happening is unique in a way where it's almost having a superhero boom, where the superhero boom happened and has sustained now for 20 years, which is not an insult. I'm for it, and I don't think there's going to be a bubble burst. But fantasy hasn't had that in a long, long time. And so to have this Rings of Power trailer just knock my socks off. House of the Dragon, I've been excited for, have loved diving into it with you here. And then to throw in Dungeons and Dragons, and it looks great. And then to throw in Willow coming in the fall, and we're slowly picking back up again. On Casterly Talk, neither of us have watched Witcher. I'm sure people in the comments probably have. And they're saying it started with Witcher. And you know what? You're right. And other people that say it started with Outlander. You're right too.
And Wheel of Time, gonna have into a second season. It's a great time, and which is what George R. R. Martin keeps saying. Stop pitting me against these shows. I want them all to win. I might want to win one more award than the rest of them, but I want all of the shows to win awards.
Yeah, because why did he write this? He wrote it because he loved this stuff, because he read Tolkien, because he read Stan Lee comics. Like, so it all comes back around, and so we're thriving. And like I said when we had Alex and Molly on for the Ring segment, I just like that nobody is. Like, fans make competition narratives, creators don't usually, and none of these shows are aiming to be the same thing. Like, the Dungeons and Dragons movie is an action comedy fantasy, whereas the Rings of Power is a family high fantasy, whereas House of the Dragon is a political intrigue fantasy and a family drama. And we'll see what other things bring down the road, but I'm all for this. It almost makes me sad that the Dark Crystal show came a little too early. It feels like
that's right.
Like, maybe that could have sustained, but
good time to roll your 20-sided die and enjoy this fantasy world in front of us here. Great stuff as always, Alden. Thank you so much. Probably this will be our show for the week. We'll be back next week. Still wanted the Game of Thrones rewatch is still going on. We got a big one coming up there. We got some special videos that Alden and I are working on to put here exclusively on the YouTube channel. So you can look forward to that. And of course, the podcast, if you're out there listening in the podcast world, go ahead and give us a rating and review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all those kind of things. Help the show get back to the podcast, get back to where it was at the end of season 8. We were riding high at the end of season 8. And then understandably, people were like, oh, cool. Game of Thrones is over. It's not. We got this entire world back to crawl into and dig around. So Alden, thank you, sir. Tell them all where you can be found and if they want to hear you talk Star Wars.
Yeah, you can find me personally on Twitter and Instagram at that Alden Diaz, ThatAldenDiaz. Find me on Octo Radio Star Wars podcast, where we have 3 different shows. One of them is the main interview show. Tori Fox's show is coming back soon with a visual Kenobi costumes and sort of like mythos deep dive into all of the design choices. We also have a Rebels rewatch, which I do with my friend Nikki Kumar, who's in the comments right now. Hi, Nikki. And yeah, it's an exciting time on Octo Radio. And what I can say is that I'm working on something really, really huge that I'm really, really proud of already, and it's exciting. Aside from that, that's a One and Done Film Club, which I also do. Find that, and then look forward to some special character explainers that we're going to be doing.
Yeah, we're going to get you all prepped for House of the Dragon. As for me, you can follow me at Ken Napzok or go to kennapzok.com. Got some comedy coming up this weekend if you're local at Flappers in Burbank. As I said up the top of the show, and you can see right up above us there in the overlay, we do finally have that Twitter page. About 3 years too late, but I have it. And then we'll work for some more social media. But it's just an easy way to find us, easy way to connect with us. Just look for us on Twitter at Casterly Talk. That is it for this week, my friends. We've had a lot of fun talking about this world of ice and fire and the Rings of Power. We'll see you next time here on Casterly Talk.